technology. Yet most marketers are not happy with their own performance. Only 1 in 10 say that they are, and a lot of times the rest of the organization feels the same way. So this would lead us to believe maybe there's a way that we could do marketing better when it comes to the people and the processes. So with that, I'll turn it over to you, Jeff.
Great. Yeah, and exactly. I mean, what we've talked about is this need for something else to get us out of this lull. And I know it's the end of the year, and, you know, outside of our offices, we've got, you know, police cars and people honking and all this other stuff distracting us. And then we've also got, you know, all this workload that we're supposed to be getting done before the new year. And it's just, with our old techniques and tactics and the stuff that we did or didn't learn in college, it's difficult to get us started. So that's why we want to look at agile marketing now. And so that reality, that is, we need more presence in marketing for our organizations. You know, over the past decade, we needed more digital presence. We needed more IT. We needed, you know, a lot of businesses considered software developers the currency. The more good software developers you had, the more effective your company was going to be because of all this digital movement. And now we're seeing that the awareness, the conversation, and the attention of our customers is so distracted and lost with the noise. The marketer and the size of an effective marketing team is that new measurement that we can see how effective software services or just products in general will be through effective digital marketing. And so we have a big problem. And in most organizations, it is the conversation that we're talking about today. It's the content owner, the person who's responsible for keeping their eye on the content efforts, whether they be content marketing or, you know, website content, PR. Content takes that form in whatever we push out. And so the person who's responsible for those efforts, whether it be a campaign or something else, tends to be the bottleneck in the organization. So I want to talk about a few personas of content owners that I've seen over the past, you know, 15 years of working with marketing teams and IT teams to help them deliver digital assets. So the first one is Too Busy Tammy. And Tammy is the most common one. She's overworked, she's overcommitted, she's got people pulling her from every different direction. And so she is at the front line serving content, creating content, pushing it out. And she's way undercommitted to the strategy, to the plan, to that backlog in the priority, to what's coming next, what's most important right now, and then how well is our content doing. And so being the DMA, you know, the data aspects, collecting the appropriate data, aligning that data, making sure we have true correlation to this content is kind of a big responsibility that Tammy just doesn't have time to do. And so she doesn't have the appropriate resources, and she doesn't even have time herself to go look for those. And so how Agile helps her kind of solve this problem is it gives her a roadmap and a set of tools that will align her with a direction to go to have more time, a direction to go to be more evenly balanced with her day, to be able to produce and to also reflect. And so the techniques in Agile will help her get there. Some of the members of her team might say that they love her, and because they can shoot her an idea and she'll give it a shot, but they really wish that she would kind of keep track of all this stuff and go back to them and tell them, hey, this is what's up next, because everything just feels like it's off the hip. And so the next one is one that we see a lot in marketing, and this is the Oliver the Outsider. So he's a agency member, And his agency is super cool agency, and he's been out of college for about 3 years, and so that's senior level in most agencies, and he expects to be paid, you know, near six figures, and everybody gives him kind of the authority to do things. And his agency was hired by old school brick and mortar company to start a content marketing plan, and they have a team of two, but that's just busy doing brochures and, you know, just mailings, things that would be more traditional marketing. And so they say, hey, Oliver, can you do our digital stuff? So Oliver goes out and he starts a blog, and he starts to talk about social media, starts to talk about millennial topics, starts to talk about anything pop culture, and he gains an audience. And the problem he has right now is now he can't show ROI. He's got all this traffic, but it doesn't mean anything to the organization, and it doesn't end up selling the brick. And so Oliver really needs to go back and look at that problem of audience. And that's where Agile comes in with him, is if he can go back, step back and say, okay, what is the audience looking for? What would they consider something that's valuable? Then I can use Agile and content marketing applied together to make sure that we're delivering those types of blog posts or those types of videos that will educate and inform that audience to do a transaction with the brick company and not just get an audience. And you see a lot of social media go this way. You'll see a lot of like Snapchat for B2B that drives all this attention from a different audience, but it doesn't necessarily convert because there was never, like, this wasn't a relationship that would have worked out. It just was incompatible. Next is not committed Nancy. And I've seen her quite often in large organizations. And her thing is she just wants to kind of buzzword everything and air quote everything. So she heard about Agile by reading CMO.com, and she said, hey guys, go out and be Agile. And then, you know, things like social media are a fad because she heard it from a friend in another organization. And her battle is in the boardroom. She wants to build up a name for herself, and so she's always fighting to climb the ladder. She's always fighting to be on the public stage to kind of build up her own persona, but never kind of focused on what she can do for the people in the organization below her. And so her efforts are usually just getting in the way, like saying, hey, do something, and then she never helps out, never makes it happen. And so she, in an Agile process, needs somebody else to take the ball from her because she's not a content owner. She's effective, and she helps get resources, she helps get, you know, budget, she helps get awareness at those executive meetings because she's out there fighting those battles, but she doesn't give any input to the team. So they need that responsibility handed back to somebody else. Another one, and my favorite because it's me, is Hat Hoarder Henry. He is new leadership on the content team. So he started out as a person who develops content, and then over time he just kind of kept climbing the ladder, and then he found himself in management. It's hard for him because this wasn't his passion. His passion was creating content. And now that he's a manager, he's a great leader. People like him, people want to go to him, but he doesn't know when to give up, doesn't know when to give in and say, okay, I'm no longer the doer, I'm the one who's managing the doers. And so when somebody says, hey, we need a blog post, he raises his hand. And when they say, hey, let's go shoot a video, he raises his hand. He's always there to help, but he's never there to kind of lead. And so by doing that, he makes decisions based off of him doing the work and never like passing along that wisdom, that influence to make his team stronger. And so this is something that almost every single manager will face when they roll out of a production environment. That day you have to, you know, put up your glove and sit back and watch other people play the game. And Agile helps him because it has tools and techniques for teaching younger people how, or younger in the the creation. So maybe they've been traditional print media, and now they're on digital, teaching them aspects of the job that make them grow in their wisdom and the ability to create better content. And that's where he can invest a lot of his time. So he's still part of the process, but he's taking on that mentor coach role, and then also doing the day-to-day task of management. So that's Hat Hoarder Henry or myself. And then this is one that usually I get a kick out of, Kids Table Kimberly. And it's unfortunate that in our industry, marketing just doesn't have an effective seat at the table. That you'll have companies with thousands of employees and no defined CMO. They've just always put marketing underneath either sales or underneath technology, and technology is such a weird place to put a marketer. But instead of carving out a spot and saying, look, we do need awareness driven that isn't necessarily tied directly to engaging in a sale and isn't directly tied into the technology we use. And so Kids Table Kimberly has tons of problems. She can't get a seat at the that appropriate table to help them move forward, to help them think new things. She keeps 2 backlogs. One's full of ideas that would work and are experimental, and then other ones that she knows she can get approval of. And it's just, there's always this ongoing fear with Kids Table Kimberly that if she steps too far, she's going to lose her job. And that creates a lot of fear in all of us. We never know what's going on. Nobody, when you have a job, want to lose it for making a decision. But it's something that fear is driving her so much that her team can't do effective content. They can't create the content that they know will work, and in turn they get lower ROI because they knew what they should have done, but they just didn't do it. And so we need Agile for her to show these executives, to show the people who are having her sit at the kids' table, look, here's what we're doing, here's how it's working, here's some more data that will show you if we do take this bet, we have a pretty good probability that this will occur. And so that data that comes out of the Agile process will then give her a little bit more strength and a little bit more awareness of what they're doing and allow her to actually make those decisions. And then in those organizations that don't have the CMO, or a Kids Table Kimberly is there or not there because she left to go somewhere else, you have the Knights Round Table. You have a group of people, and this could be the sales manager and the operations manager, and then the CEO sometimes, right? The CEO has to be a part of everything. And they are the place where decisions are made for all our content. That if we have a question, we have to send off an email and CC these people. And then when they get together, 80% of their conversation is about catching up and 20% is actually meeting. And we never know when things are going to be effective, when things are going to actually come back down, and the decisions just don't happen. And so Knights of the Round Table just need to be broken up, and we just need one particular person in charge of this content. And they can go talk to the Knights and get steering decisions or get ideas and different types of analysis. But the order, the priority, what's up next, things like that, do not go through the Knights. And so who's this guy? Me, right? Matt kind of gave you an introduction earlier. I am a former software developer. I'm formerly a Microsoft MVP, which means I was one of 8 in the world when I was 22 years old that they brought in to help them see what was going on in the community and envisioning with the technology called XML, which powers pretty much the web before some of the modern jQuery and JSON stuff came out. So if that sounds geeky to you, that's the world I lived in. But I was also the founder of the largest blog community for technical bloggers called Geeks of Blogs. I've been author twice, once on a best-selling book on SharePoint. So if you've ever been in that giant platform, you can understand what a 900-page book would look like on that. And then I've also been podcasting since 2005 and an Agile marketer the entire time. And so my background gives me this different view of it because I can see it from implementing Agile every single day for nearly the past 20 years, and all the work I do, and then also forming a content marketing effort that grew to 100,000 blog posts, and seeing what it's like to actually build an audience and having people come back and truly participate. And so that gave me just this different insight into content marketing and seeing it being effective. But let's do a little bit of review from last time we met. We talked about what content marketing is, and I love it as a platform because I think out of it you can do small campaigns. You can do a lot of different types of marketing through content, but when you apply the practice of content marketing, you can get to the place where you're building an audience and not just spraying and praying and trying different things. And the audience's power right now is everything to any business that's growing. So the first thing in content marketing is your highest priority is customer satisfaction. When they receive the content and they read it and they consume it or they attend your event, you have to do everything you're doing when you're producing it to make sure they're happy. Not that you're happy, not that you drop this link in for your product or that you're getting clicks and all this thing. That's necessary, but that's not the highest priority. The highest priority is that that person consuming it will be satisfied. And then with that, we need to work at a pace that will allow us to sustain, to make it through the holidays without sweating, to want to go to work on Monday, to be excited about growing, to be excited about new people on the team. And that pace is something that comes whenever we have time to reflect and grow. And then we need the ability to react to change. You can't be Marriott here, where you see Airbnb coming and you don't change anything. You just continue to buy more chains that do the same thing, right? You have to start to adapt and say, look, we've see something else coming, or the taxi companies and Uber, we see something coming. We need to move, pivot, and change. Same thing happens in content. If you see the uptick of use of video and you are purely text-based content, well, if you don't start moving into video quickly, you'll be playing more catch up and trying to build an audience when it was fertile ground and very easy to grab attention in the early days. So making sure that you change at the right spot. And then deliver content frequently. Take it, make it, put it out, make sure it's great, and then do it again and again and again. Don't hold it all up for a giant campaign and then push it out, but let your audience have it over and over and over again. Great example of this is if you look into the record industry right now. Most bands don't put out full albums anymore. They put out small singles or EPs for like, almost 2 years, and then they put something together that is the whole album. And they do that because they have to keep the attention of the audience or you'll forget about them. And so we're the same way. We can't just put out, an annual report and say that's it. We have to decorate every single month, week, or whatever with other content around the topics that we're interested in. And then we need to adapt as a team and reflect as a team. If we have people that are working or aren't working, we need to know about it. If we have processes that are working or aren't working, we need to know about it. And a great example of this is IBM. Under the new leadership, they felt that people working from home was not working because millennials that would come into the organization would actually not want to work from home. They wanted to go into the offices. And so they come in and no one was there. And so they had to sit back and say, wait a minute, that doesn't work. We need mentors back with these people. And so let's bring everyone back in-house. Now, that may have been a dramatic move to do that. They didn't necessarily have to change everything, but they did. They adapted, and they did that to be more agile in their marketing efforts. So those are the kinds of things that you need to look at on your teams and then also through your content and make those minor adjustments over time rather than having to do dramatic things like take everybody from their home into an office that's 400 miles away. So what is agile marketing? Agile marketing is very similar to content marketing, but it's all about building that audience, delivering valuable assets to people, and then also looking back and saying, what are the processes and tools that our team can use to make these things come into play, to drive that satisfaction, to work at that pace, to deliver frequently. So who is on this giant agile team that we've been talking about, right? First one is you have content developers, and this new term is something that allows us to get out of the silos that we've had for so long and get into a place to where we have people who have majors and minors. You're really good at some things that you've been classically trained in, whether it's writing or editorial or even design, and then you have things that you're getting better at. So this is like you go deep and then you go wide on some other things, and being able to grab a camera and shoot a good photo should be a goal for every content team out there. Every member of a content team should be able to do that, or to grab a camera that's not their phone and go get a video because it looks better, or capture good audio, to know that if I have the opportunity to capture audio, what do I need? What tools do we have laying around to make sure I don't fumble it up by getting really bad audio, right? I need something good. And so that's where you have content developers starting to take on other roles, whether it's SEO, strategy, actual types of content and media produced. We're all gathering as a team that does all these things. Then we have a Scrum Master, and this is the person who is the process manager of the Agile process. They don't have to be marketing focused. They could be your IT Scrum Master. They could be somebody who's, never even heard of content marketing, but they know and love Agile and Scrum, and they've been a coach for a while. It could be a consultant for a short period of time. It could be one of your team members that goes to training and figures this out and gets the ability to be Scrum Master. But they're the ones that organize the meetings. They're the ones that remove issues that are happening. You could think of them as the sideline coach that's making sure that everybody has water, that the refs are calling the right thing. They are that person. And they whip people into shape too. One of the best qualities of Scrum Masters is the ability to sit down with somebody who's not effective in their work and helping them become more effective. Because it's hard to move somebody out of the seat into a different seat. And it slows things down when you don't. And so seeing that and getting people energized around learning, around education is so key. Marketing is one of the few spaces in the organization where education does not continue to be something that a person focuses on primarily. In software development, it is all about education, constantly having to learn stuff. Technologies are changing like 2 times a year now, rather than like once every few years, and you have to stay up on it. Sales practices, those guys read books all the time. They're listening to podcasts. They're trying to figure things out. Product and operations, they're always looking for new things and trying to see what's out there and growing. Marketers will sit there and not understand what content marketing means for 3 years until they have to look it up. And so we need Scrum Masters that get us on tasks together and grow together and learn effective practices that we can put into play earlier rather than later. And then we have that final role of the whole conversation we're talking about, the content owner, the person who's responsible for the backlog and the team. And so let's look at some more characteristics of what Agile marketing looks like front to back with content marketing briefly. So first thing is we have personas. We start with personas so we know who our audience is. We know what they want. We know what kind of content they'd be looking for, what those goals are they have. If they're B2B, what's the thing that's going to get them the attaboys and the pats on the back that they've been dying for, right? How can we reach them? What keeps their attention longer? What stage in their journey are they usually in if they're a persona? Things like that that give us insights into the audience and allows us to start thinking of somebody and having that person in our mind when we start to consume and produce content and information. Next is the content mission statement, right? Who's the audience? What are we doing? And what is the key business goal that we plan to get out of it? And what is the goal of the audience, right? This is the thing that's going to make sure, the chalk outline that makes sure that what we produce fits in this line, or this is the definition of a round hole, and we're going to make sure no square pegs get through it. So our content mission statement just gives us those bumpers, those gutters. And then we have that backlog. And the backlog is the different pieces of content we plan to produce in priority order. And in that backlog, we have content items. And inside the content item itself, we have different fields, things like what the title of this is, so we can start to refer to this piece of content as a thing, but not necessarily the headline, what priority it is, and the list. And then I like to adopt other things. Instead of a description, I like to have a content story. I want to know who the persona is, what the goal or what the problem that they're facing, and then how do we plan to deliver for that goal or that problem value. And that's a hard thing to do, right? Because once you sit down and you start defining the story, some of those ideas kind of wear out a little bit, right? We say, yeah, this isn't really going to be valuable to somebody. And that's the whole point of it, is to make sure that we're producing value so that the customers are satisfied. Once we have this ethereal statement about how we produce value, now we actually have to document what we plan to do. And so that's another field called how to demonstrate value, which is a list of ways that we plan to do research, to build a list, to have, sightings, or to produce like this video and all these other aspects that will actually drive home that value. And then we have an estimate. How long is this going to take our team to do? And that's key, because without that estimate, it's hard for us to forecast, it's hard for us to plan, it's hard for us to get a commitment out of our teams, and it's hard for us to know how much this thing, is worth when we start to see that, ROI to previously released pieces of content. So we're ready to go. We got our team, we got our backlog. Now we go into either a sprint or this Kanban approach, which is a continual flow of tasks. And so we won't talk about that much, but we're going to talk about the sprint side instead of the whip side. Sprint is a time box. So we're going to go in and plan 2 weeks of work or 1 week of work with our team. And during that time, we're going to remove the distractions. No new work comes in unless we end the sprint. And there's pain with that. So we don't do that. And the goal is to complete whatever we put on the board for that sprint. And then once everything's done, we demo the content to either the content owner who hasn't seen it maybe, some of the stakeholders, or even some of the customers to get their feedback. This is like an early view of the content. And then a review, what went well, what kind of like, with the content owner, this is here's what we did. But there's another review that has to take place, and that's the retrospective. And that is the inside the team dynamics, who worked well, and then what of the process went well. And so those are two different things, but this retrospective is so key, because you can get that stuff off your chest that you need to and allow your team to grow and start to define new practices that will allow us to work better. So we know what Agile is-ish, if this is the first time we've been introduced to it. We know who's on the team. Now let's look at the core responsibilities of a content owner. And they're usually not members of the content team, but they can be. But their responsibilities are so important to that content team. The first is they have to outline the content for the backlog. They don't necessarily define everything. They are not the owner where it's a dictatorship. They outline concepts. So what should we create? What kind of value do we look for? What are those fields that go into the persona? The content owner really needs to be the most educated person about the audience. So that way they can say, this one would be great next, and have that be a decision that is based off of what the audience is looking for, and not necessarily what the business is looking for or what the team will find most easy, but what does that audience want? And when I wrote my book on Agile marketing, guess what? It's not, if I'm releasing content like through a blog or through other forms while I'm writing it, it's not chapter 1, chapter 2, chapter 3. It's all over the place because the conversations are going on, because I'll do a session and somebody will ask a question, and that would be at the end of the book, but they want an answer now. And so I'll write up that piece and I'll give it to them. And so that priority of the audience is completely different than what we would put into chapter form or best for the business. You need to monitor change in the business. And this is one of the most underrated responsibilities of a content owner. You will not find out about your next product release until they need you to write content for it. Until they are ready to go. So you're not going to be invited to the meetings that you need to be invited to. You're invited to the ones where they want something from you. And so you need to find out about those meetings earlier. You need to find out about what's going on. You need to walk over to your product team, your service team, and engage with people. Look around in R&D, see what's going on if you have a department like that, and see where changes in the business are happening. And then go outside and look at your customers and your competitors. What are they doing? Who are they using? Why are they changing things? What's going on in the industry? If you don't know these things, it's hard for you to turn your audience into the direction they need to go, and also hard for you to turn the business into a direction that it needs to go because of disruption. So always be monitoring the ecosystem that you're in, who your competitors are, who your customers are, and what are the changes inside your business and outside your business. Once you have an audience, listen to them. Go out and be with them. Go sit in the crowd. Talk to them. Don't always make it about you, though. Don't always make it about a survey that you're going to ask for submissions, but make it a conversation about them. Let people talk. They love talking. And get to know them and what they're doing, what they're going through themselves. Learn about those struggles that they have inside their business if it's B2B, and what some of those commonalities are of a person in the role that they're in, because you might find some great ways of sales enablement, producing sales enablement content for your sales team that allow you into the door, and it's something that somebody else wasn't even looking at. So listen and know your audience. Become one of them if possible. And then analyze your team's performance. Nothing sucks worse than working with somebody who's not good. On just in my recent times, maybe this week, maybe not this week, right? I've worked with people who have maybe pushed code over my code, or maybe released content with quite a few errors in it that I had to hurry up and go back and fix. There are things like that that happen that make it difficult for our content producers to be the best. And so we have to analyze the performance of everybody on the team and make sure that our Scrum Master is effectively removing those issues, but the Scrum Master doesn't necessarily have the authority to fix the problem. So you as a content owner sometimes have that authority to be able to remove somebody from an organization if they need to be, or to be able to get somebody the training and education that they need to be more effective, or to give a reward to somebody because they are going above and beyond what was expected of them. And you want to make them, make it known that you really appreciate that. And you can't do it if you're not looking at them. You can't do it if you're not watching what's going on and listening to the conversations that they're having. But sometimes you're in such a role that it's difficult for them to be comfortable around you and have those conversations. So use strategic people in your organization to get information out of them. and do something about it. Make change where change needs to happen. And just like downward expectations were for your employees, upward expectations are there. And marketing is in this weird place to where we don't actually close any deals. And salespeople sometimes do their best job at making sure we don't close deals. And you're measured on the closed deals. So you're measured on the return on investment. Did we sell product? But yet you weren't that full line seller. And so we have to set the appropriate expectations that says, hey, organization, we know we're responsible for ROI. We get it. We are the marketers. We are the ones that go into the market and make a name and awareness for our business. And so we have different measurements that we can use that will prove that what we're doing is effective, and then also show where some of the gaps are in the whole ROI spectrum. We can also give you information about how much content we're producing, what our resources are doing, so that you can see inside the organization, that is the marketing team, and know that we're effectively using money and we're not just throwing money at different things, but we're being strategic about it. And you can set those expectations, like if we start a content marketing effort and sometimes it takes 9 to 18 months for this thing to work, that they don't think it's going to work tomorrow immediately, and then cancel your program after 6 months. So go in, set the expectations, give them information as often as they need it. And go back to that backlog that we've been producing this whole time and is always there and is always living, and prioritize it again with the information you gained out of all these different responsibilities, and make sure that the business is winning, the audience is winning, everything is being effective, and we're producing content that's going to lead us into a direction. So with that, let's go into the 7 characteristics and start to lead this thing toward the end. So what's the 7 characteristics, which are different than responsibilities, of a good content owner? And I'm going to change it, because if you have these, or a lot of these, then I'm going to say you're a great content owner, because so many people don't consider these these characteristics along the lines of those responsibilities. The first is perseverance and steadfastness. So those seem like great words that you could put with a photo and a black background and hang on the wall in the 90s, right? But they are very meaningful to this content marketing effort, because it goes so long, because it's really a forever thing, because building an audience never ends. Perseverance means that we continue to be steadfast when things are difficult or there might be delay. So think of this as it's snowing outside and you got to get home. Perseverance is pushing through the snow to get home. Steadfast is the ability to stand firm and be unwavering. So this is that ability to not hide and wait for the snow to end, right? To be steadfast, to be like a brick or a rock. And so for people like Not Committed Nancy or Kids Table Kimberly, you have to hold strong. You have to work late if your team is working late because they were delayed on the sprint. You have to just be there for your team, persevere through this, get them to the end result of a sprint, and then excite them and engage with them during the next sprint, and don't just leave them on their own. So many managers will go home at the end of the day when their people are staying late to work for things. And I think that's one of the things that I've seen in my family of entrepreneurs, that the ones who had great teams are the ones who stuck around and helped people and were part of the problem when there was a problem, and helped solve it, but didn't necessarily do what HOARDER would have done, and that's get in the way. Next one is the endurance for the long haul. So just because you persevered doesn't mean that you actually had the strength to get there. You can fall down and not make it in the snow, for that analogy. The endurance means that you've done this enough that you can persevere, that you can push through. So for people like Too Busy Tammy, this means to not abandon your post, not jump away because other things come up, to keep going for the long haul, because right now in our industry, content marketing, Joe Polizzi is kind of at the end of his term with Content Marketing Institute, right? Is UBM bought it out, and so he's leaving. And part of it, the podcast that they do, P&R, is over. So this past week, they released their last episode, and so now P&R is over. And for a lot of fans of the show, this means every Tuesday they were spending an hour in the morning listening to the show, and now that's not going to be there. And it's okay, right? It's something that we're all grateful for, the time that they committed and everything like that. But in the end, the long haul is over for them, and it will disappoint some of the audience. And so you have to be sure that that example is a graceful way of doing it. But there's so many examples of people who just stop doing a content marketing effort and abandon people midway through, a process, and it actually creates animosity towards the brand rather than the thing that we want, which is getting their attention and keeping them happy. And so make sure that you're in it for the long haul. The information gatherer, what I was talking about earlier with those, the organization, you're not going to be invited to the meetings that you need to be invited to, only the ones that you're going to provide information to for the other teams. And so you have to listen inside the organization. You have to listen to your personas. If you have a conference that's coming up and you're going to do a big event at that conference and you're the content owner, don't work the booth. Go to the sessions, walk around and talk to people. Let your people work the booth. You get to know the audience. You also look at your people, watch what they're doing at the booth. Listen to the conversations that are happening as people walk away. Are people annoyed because you just scan their badge to get the name so you can blast email them? Or are they happy because you provided value? But gather information constantly. That's an amazing characteristic of a content owner. Have the courage to stand out. Courage is something that we just don't see a lot of in some of our industries, just depending on the time of year, because usually it means that we could lose our job, be overseen for a promotion, or could just have a negative view of us if something doesn't work. But by standing out, you can win, you can be effective, you can make change. Through that, my favorite principle is integrity, because there's so much dishonesty in marketing, and different tactics that are used, and different things that are there. So if inside your soul you sit down and for dinner and somebody calls you and it just drives you crazy, I don't care if it's an effective strategy. If you feel that that is not, a good use of somebody's time, then don't implement policies like that. If you hate your inbox being littered with just junk, then make sure every email you send has value in it. And if it doesn't have value in it, don't send it. Have that integrity that says, we're going to do the best for our audience and not necessarily the best way to the next sale. And so integrity it takes many different forms. It's honest to your team. It's honest to your audience. It's just constantly having that moral uprightness. And then compassion for the team, right? You need to like your people. You need to really like your people. And so many people just don't do that. They don't know the names of the people on their teams. They don't know what they think about. They don't know where their education plan is. They don't know where they want to go in their career. And this is like your personal audience. So investing in them and giving compassion to them. Don't always take, the salary bump and continue to grow in the organization. Maybe help other people stand out in their organization too, and grow effectively. And then finally, empathy for the audience. And this one is a word that just gets thrown around and misused all the time. Empathy means you understand because you have experienced it. And so for a lot of us, we just can't have empathy for some of our audiences. One of my number one customers is the Veterans of Foreign Wars of the United States. I am not a veteran. I cannot have empathy for the veterans audience when we're talking about veteran-related stuff. However, I can have empathy for things like finding a job, good health care, working through policies and systems. And so there are ways that I can learn to have empathy when I'm not a direct match for the audience. And those are the things that we need to start to understand, and we need to truly go out and do. And so if we, we're reaching construction workers, go out on a job site, with authority, somebody cares, you're there, and help out, right? See it. Applebee's, the restaurant chain, used to have everybody in the corporate offices go to an Applebee's once a month and work. And so you had to go serve food, or you had to go wash dishes, or you had to go work around, because it's the only way you'd understand the dynamic of the people who coming in, or, is to be there and to do the work. You need to go and eat there, right? If you're in a hospital, you need to go and sit down in the hospital and listen to what people are saying in the different rooms and different places to know where their pain is, so that when you're producing content for your website, you're making it effective and you're getting it out there to help them resolve some of these pain issues when you can. And then other times just have sympathy. And that's that other word that when you can't have empathy, as much sympathy as possible, which is where you can think what it's like, and trying to build as much sympathy will turn you into an effective audience builder. And so now go out and own it. Do these things and these practices and principles, and be an effective content owner. So Matt, I'll give it back to you, and then maybe we can answer some questions.
Yeah, thanks, Jeff. That was great. Thanks for everyone who joined us and joined us for part one as well. Just a quick note that, as I mentioned at the beginning about Mintent, it is a content marketing platform, and it is a platform that can be used to facilitate agile marketing. If anyone wants to try it out, there's a free trial available on our website, which is www.getmintent.com/free trial. Happy to give you a demo or whatever else you might need. So with that, Mackenzie, I think we have some questions queued up.
Yes, we do. Are you ready for them?
Yeah, let's go.
Okay. The first one is, how do you get invited to the right meetings in your organization?
Yeah, that's a fun one, because you do want to get the invitation. You don't want to just walk around and look in the door, and if you got one of those fancy iPad things, you're like, oh, I want to go in this meeting, and walk in. I think it's going and finding the heads of those departments, setting up a time to have coffee with them or to meet with them, and explain what your goals are. Say, if it's a product team, sit down with the VP of product development and say, look, we want to make sure that we have content ready for you when you're ready to launch. And then we also want to make sure that we're building the right audience for you that'll let you effectively launch content without the use of advertisement, without the use of like blast emails to every one of our customers and things like that. We want to prepare excitement for you. And so by doing that, it then lets them see your goals and objectives, and they'll know the best places to bring you in. But normally they just probably have no idea what you're doing. And they might still consider you the arts and crafts department of the organization.
Awesome, thank you. The next question is, what are some ways you can get control of your schedule more?
Hey Matt, do you wanna grab that one? You're the schedule meister with Mintent, right?
Yeah, well, I mean, that's the whole reason that Mintent exists is that you know, typically as we spend more money and have more pieces of content and bigger teams, you know, we have to keep a control of that. And so typically people start off with a spreadsheet, and they might have whiteboards with sticky notes and that type of thing. Sometimes then they move to general, you know, project management software. But a content marketing platform, basically at the heart of it is a calendar. It's an editorial calendar where all of the content appears. And then behind each piece of content, you can see all of that information about why you're producing that content and the persona and the buyer's journey, all that stuff you talked about. And then there's workflows. So you can actually assign each stage of the production of that content to different people as it flows through, and you can see where all your content is and whose desk it's sitting on and when the deadlines are and all of that kind of thing. So like I said, there's a free trial on the site, and that's one way to do it. It's not the only way, but anyone who wants to try it out in their support of Agile marketing, I would welcome that.
Awesome.
Thank you. The next question is, does Agile work better with centralized or decentralized teams?
Yeah, that's a good one. I think it works best for both that are prepared. So I've seen it work with teams who have never met in person. It's what the big piece is that you all know what you're working on and that you have tools in place that allow you to work together. I mean, it's definitely hard to say that working in an office together isn't the best place to actually get work done, but at the same time, it can also be the biggest place of distraction. So if you're working on things individually most days and then coming together to put things together, having a silo or having a place to sit and focus is your highest priority. So I usually give it up to the teams to determine what's the best for you. If we make it to where they can be centralized, and then also decentralize themselves when they want to, that could be a great way to be effective. So I think having, you know, comfort in technology to where you're using things like Slack or Messenger, you're using, you know, video chats effectively or audio chats effectively, or archiving things in conversations to allow everyone to be a part of it. You can have a win-win in both, but not one is better than the other because they all have their strengths and weaknesses.
Thank you. And I believe this will be our last question since we only have a few minutes left, but it's a two-part question. How do you deal with a team member who won't buy into an Agile methodology? Are there any tools that enable teams with various roles to collaborate and move work forward?
Yeah, so fire that person. No, well, if you can. No, but seriously, if somebody won't buy into it, what I do is I sit down with them and I say, will you give me 1 month of just you trying this? I don't want to hear a word from you. I don't want to know your opinion because I already know what it is. I know you hate it. I don't want to see you with a grumbled look on your face. I don't want to hear your, you know, everything that's bad about this. What I want you to do is I want you to give it a try. And if I can get them to give it a try, usually they can be swayed into a direction. And then after that month, the feedback that they have will be real good feedback. It'll be the things that they didn't like that are true, because every team is not a perfect fit for pure Scrum or pure Kanban. And every team is not a perfect fit for, you know, content marketing. Every effort just doesn't fit into that. And so we want to give them an experimental time to where they can try it out. And so once they get there, then we want to listen to their feedback. And if they're just going to be resistant about it the whole time, you're never going to fit them into the team. So find another way to make them effective on the team. There's always a need for somebody who isn't fitting in your sprint box that can block and tackle the requests that are coming in, or that are effective publishers of content or data gatherers or whatever it is. But if it is integral that they're part of your Agile team and everybody else is on board, but they're not, it might be time to find a new person. And then what was the second question again?
The second part of that question was, are there any tools that enable teams with various roles to collaborate and move work forward?
Oh yeah, there's tons of great tools. There's, inside of connected like Word now, there's the ability to, and then Google, you can, create content together and it's all live updated. If you're producing video, there's tools like Frame.io that'll actually allow you to put a video up, and then you can make live comments, and then to different scenes, to different places, to drag and drop things over, to have a conversation about the video, and then update it and put up new videos and continue to collaborate on it. And then that same concept could be ported to something like an audio podcast or something like that. So there's with the new digital age that we're in, from a desktop perspective, there's so much more we can do working together. But then from an agile process technique, having tools like Mintent, and then having tools for actual agile boards and things like that, working together, connected, will just allow you to see what's going on, to visualize it, to actually engage with it if you have touch-based computers and things like that, and let you really work together without having that artifact of paper to digital process at some point.
Thanks, Jeff. And thank you all for listening in today. And thanks to Jeff Julian again and Matt Dion for such an informative webinar. We will be sending out the recording and PDF of the presentation within the next 48 to 72 hours. This concludes our webcast. Thank you so much for joining us today, and enjoy the rest of your day, and have a great holiday and a happy new year.
Thank you.